What is up, people of the DC multiverses out there? And that word definitely applies in today's video because we are talking about a big bunch of news. With this article that The Hollywood Reporter just dropped, my God, there is some crazy news in here. So I was going to make just separate videos, but there's just too much to talk about here in every sector of DC fandom that I personally love, from Matt Reeves' The Batman, talking about not only just the spin-off HBO Max shows, but more of them, including Rogues Gallery villain movies. And you know me, I wanted to make a separate video about that, but I kind of still will. We're going to get into it in this video just to let all the Batman fans on the channel know I will be diving into that very in-depth in a separate video, but of course we're going to include my initial reaction in this video. Also, Henry Cavill's Superman, of course, some more information on the early development of that. What exactly is James Gunn up to at DC? There's more. I'm forgetting what it is from the top of my head, but there's more. Of course, I am going to timestamp this video. If you want to skip to a certain subject, go ahead, but I do recommend staying tuned for all of this video. Of course, reading out this article is going to be a bit wordy, but in between certain news paragraphs, if you will, I'm going to give my breakdown. Tons of you aren't subscribed to the channel. It would mean a lot to me if you finally hit that button if you've been watching me for a while, so thank you if you've done that, and go ahead and leave a like on this video to show your support. So DC is at a turning point. James Gunn pitches secret movie, Dwayne Johnson flexes his Superman power exclusive. And just what is Matt Reeves secretly up to? So this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. Let's get into this. So with the release of Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam this Friday and DC Films head Walter Hamada quietly ending his tenure in the coming days, DC is charting into truly unknown territory. In fact, without a permanent leader to guide the stable of some of the biggest and best known pop culture characters in the world, DC is seeing a secret but dramatic land grab amongst some of the biggest players in Hollywood. Johnson is publicly touting his vision for a future Black Adam vs. Superman movie, with his words stoking fans' desires to see Henry Cavill return as the red-caped hero. Matt Reeves is plotting an expansion of his The Batman universe, while J.J. Abrams remains in the mix as well with his own plans. And The Hollywood Reporter can exclusively report, so this is where we're kind of starting off, can exclusively report that James Gunn, the filmmaker behind Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy movies, as well as Warner Brothers DC-based The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, is angling for his own new DC project or two. And just to interject here, we have been talking about on the news roundup videos in the past few months now, there was word that James Gunn has got multiple projects in the work for HBO Max in the show kind of realm, possibly movie. This is what is still yet to be truly determined. He's been sending teasers out there, including Peter Capaldi. Does that mean we're going to go back in time and explore some of his character, considering what fate he met in the Suicide Squad movie? But this specific report goes on to say that sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that Gunn and producer Peter Safran are in talks with Warner's for a mystery movie, possibly more, that Gunn would tackle. Now, Warner's had no comment, but one insider observes a carving of the comic company's intellectual assets is happening. DC is definitely in play, says this person. How much play may depend on your perspective from inside or outside the studio. While it isn't clear what hero or teams Gunn is targeting, and the writer-director would focus on a second season of Peacemaker first. Thank you, by the way. Peacemaker is great. Go check it out. But they continue to say the studio's eyes are very much on Superman. Under Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Pictures heads Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, Warner's has an intense desire to reprise Cavill's iteration of the hero. So this is where we enter that Superman section of this article. As we know, this has been brewing for quite some time. We've actually got some more details here specifically about that Man of Steel 2 movie. The article continues to say the project that would essentially be Man of Steel 2 is being produced by Charles Roven and is currently in search for writers. There is a wish list, of course, and Christopher McQuarrie, the hand that guides the Mission Impossible movies, was on it. McQuarrie worked with Cavill on the 2018 installment Fallout, but sources say no official outreach has been made, nor may it be feasible, as the director is working on the next back-to-back Impossible installments. Now, McQuarrie himself has made it very known that he has ideas for a Superman movie. He's spoken to Cavill about it, and lots of fans, from what I'm seeing online, really actually want Christopher McQuarrie to come in for an eventual Superman movie. Now, before I go too much further on this Superman trail in this article, this Superman movie does look to be happening. Obviously, it's very, very early in the stages of development, but thanks to Dwayne Johnson, thanks to Warner Brothers Discovery as well, taking the helm and really wanting to just get the characters who have been on the sidelines for too long, like Superman, back in the swing, back in the theaters. It might not be for some time. I think some people are overlooking the fact that, for example, I believe The Witcher Season 3 and 4 are filming back to back. We've been covering that in the news roundup videos as well. I believe a Witcher shoot sometimes lasts 6 to 7 months, give or take, so this could be a year plus long shoot, max 13, 14 months at the very limit, but that's what I'm trying to say. Like, he's kind of busy, so a Superman movie wouldn't really properly start for another year and a half to 2 years, but, you know, even then, that kind of makes sense with all the pre-planning, pre-production and stuff they need to get into, but at the present time, there's not even any writers or anything attached right now. It's just, I want to make it known that Henry Cavill is kind of busy, but that doesn't mean that he can't appear in somewhat cameo roles in that period of time. I know people don't want Henry Cavill confined to just cameo roles in this new phase of the DCEU with Warner Brothers Discovery's 10-year plan, but for the time being, that is what we might have to be thankful for, because we should be thankful that we are getting an actual Man of Steel 2 movie. So cameos for the time being, you know, I'll take it. Like, you know, he's filming Witcher seasons 3 and 4 back to back, so what can you do? But that's not only it. So Johnson, however, has Superman plans of his own and has been very vocal about his desire to make a Black Adam versus Superman movie, a desire he's only reiterated more frequently in the lead up to Black Adam. This comes as he talks up his, quote, surprise cameo at the end of Black Adam, with the actor all but stating that Henry Cavill will appear. Insiders are wondering if those calls are intended to goose the movie's opening weekend box office numbers, or to maneuver Superman onto his own chess square, or perhaps both. Whatever the case, Johnson is definitely at the center of Cavill's return to DC, which was not without some drama of its own. Then the next part of the article goes on to say how Superman wasn't actually in the original plans for the Black Adam movie with Dwayne Johnson, and that the idea hatched around the reshoots for Black Adam earlier this year, but that cameo was nixed by Hamada. And this is the larger narrative here. I didn't want to really just read out word for word, but Hamada didn't want Henry Cavill back. He didn't want Superman. He had a whole different approach. So did that whole old regime. Essentially, he wanted to move beyond the Zack Snyder influence of films. But after Hamada said no, Dwayne Johnson, as the article goes on to say, went around the executive, turning to DeLuca and Abdi, who gave it the thumbs up. And that's because they are, as we know, DC, or should I say David Zaslav under Warner Brothers Discovery, wants to find his Kevin Feige for DC. But for now, the people holding those reins are DeLuca and Abdi. For example, they gave the thumbs up to the new Keanu Reeves Constantine 2 movie, and when Dwayne came to them, they were just like, yeah, do it. Screw Hamada. Like, he's leaving anyway. Those are the main scoops behind the Superman stuff, the Black Adam Superman stuff. In my opinion, I mean, obviously, they're looking at doing a Man of Steel 2 movie. Whether it's actually called that, who knows? But I don't think they should just launch straight into a Black Adam versus Superman movie. That doesn't mean that won't happen. It's just we need that solo Superman movie. And then with what happens in Black Adam with regards to Superman, that can just be picked up, obviously, in a few years' time. Maybe 3 years from now when they're, you know, getting on with that Black Adam Superman versus movie idea, or whatever the heck is going on there. It's a bit hard to grasp exactly how the execution is going to go down, but since we do know that a Superman movie, or should I say Man of Steel 2, is in development, albeit very early development, I would want that prioritized before anything with regards to that post-credit scene with Superman and Black Adam is properly addressed. But I would love to know your thoughts. What order would you like it in? How would you like things to go down? Let me know. Batman fans, oh man, this next part of the article makes me very, very, very happy. That's why I wore my Batman hat today. Not that I don't wear it a lot, but hey, I've also got my Riddler mug here. So let's get into this, and I do want to remind you, I'm going to dive deeper into this in a separate video, but I'm just going to shut up. So meanwhile, in Gotham City, filmmaker Reeves is quietly making his own expansion plans. Reeves is developing a sequel to his The Batman, which grossed a respectable $770.8 million worldwide when it was released in March. Already, a series spin-off focusing on Colin Farrell's Penguin is on its way to filming next year, but Reeves is plotting more. Now stop, just a little bit of a gap there. We've known for the longest time, and subscribe to the channel if you want to always be up to date with the latest with the Reeves Batverse, that a Batverse, yes, an actual universe of Robert Pattinson's Batman was happening, believe it or not. Even if it was starting off small, initially the 2020 DC Fandom with that first proper sizzle reel trailer announced a GCPD series, that somewhat kind of morphed or was put on the back burner and is now being looked at as an Arkham series, although currently as it stands, that's just in discussion at HBO Max. But the Penguin series was then conceived and then is actually going into production in January. But Matt Reeves was never shy in interviews to say there's other things that they would like to do, and this is where we get some clarification on that. But Reeves is plotting more. The filmmaker is meeting with writers and directors to build out movies. Yes, movies, not just series, focused on Batman's rogues gallery, both established and more obscure, with characters ranging from the Scarecrow to Clayface to Professor Pyg. All of those projects are in the very early stages of gestation. But at the same time, I was about to say it's not surprising, but it is. It is. And I say, let me first start with the not so surprising aspect. We've been talking, and if you don't already know, we've got an ongoing The Batman or Batverse, the Batman 2 discussion series on the channel, where I engage with you guys, questions, theories, ideas, where we'd like things to go, but always keeping in scope of the reality of the situation, of what Matt Reeves could do, rather than just always thinking fan fiction wise. And Professor Pyg has been a topic of conversation, but mainly Scarecrow and Clayface. And we've heard rumors and whispers of Clayface being somewhat included somehow or in some way in the Penguin series, whether that was in the original script and it's still happening or if it isn't happening, doesn't really matter right now. But Clayface has been something we've been talking about for a while, but also Jonathan Crane's the Scarecrow. As we know in Matt Reeves' universe, just like the Joker, Catwoman, both of whom actually haven't got those monikers, he's just unseen Arkham prisoner, a serial killer Batman put away a year beforehand. Catwoman, Selena Kyle's got every characteristic just like Joker does, but they're not called those characters. So Scarecrow and these other characters, even Clayface and Pyg, would probably be very early on and likely have a really cool new stamp put on it by Matt Reeves, just like how Riddler, Paul Dano's Riddler, had every characteristic under the sun of the Riddler, but had a completely fresh innovation of design and take with that of a Zodiac kind of serial killer vibe to it. So, Scarecrow, as I was getting to, could be implemented in an HBO Max series or movie, but this is more specifically saying movies. And that is just something that was more of the surprising thing. I thought we'd be getting more series, or for example, as I was just kind of getting to, maybe they would greenlight properly the Arkham series that's currently in discussion and maybe introduce those characters in a series like that. Not that if the Arkham series does go forward, by the way, that they won't still introduce some characters, maybe Hugo Strange or whoever, maybe someone at the pinnacle of Arkham is controlling things like that. But you can see why I thought that Jonathan Crane could have been very early on experimenting there as well. But now we know that it's not just series getting made, but movies. You would have thought or assumed that's a theatrical release, but it is a bit weird to me to imagine, hey, the Professor Pyg movie set in the Batman universe. And I'm not taking a piss out of it, by the way. This is music to my ears. It's just I am wondering how these would be released, which does make me want to entertain the possibility of how it could be a movie with a decent budget, you know, more than the Penguin series kind of thing. But that's obviously not releasing in a theater. So even though this is a movie format, let's just say the Scarecrow movie, the Clayface movie, Professor Pyg movie, they could still release and expand Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne / Batman's Rogues Gallery in the background through HBO Max releases. By the way, there's nothing saying that's the case. I'm not even saying I believe that's the case. I'm just trying to visualize how they would release these movies, because when I look at it like right in front of me, it does seem a bit odd in a way of thinking, no matter how much I love it, that the Batman 1 comes out, maybe the Batman 2, or should I say the Penguin series on HBO Max before that, then the Batman 2, or like then the Scarecrow Scarecrow movie connected to the Batman universe, the Professor Pyg movie, the Batman 3, and then the Clayface movie. You know, it's just like, that's a lot of waves coming at audiences, which is why I'm slightly vibing a scent here of perhaps exclusive HBO Max releases for these Rogues Gallery movies set in the canon of the Batman universe. But either way, let me know your ideas on the release side of things, but let's just actually just talk about this idea in general. What I love about this is that Matt Reeves wants to create more projects, not just series, but movies set in the Batman universe with Robert Pattinson's Batman, so that through that introduction of the character, we can have maybe them segue their way into a main sequel movie, whether that's the Batman Chapter 2, the Batman Chapter 3. I know for almost a fact that if I was to run a poll right now, even though people love Clayface, love Professor Pyg, and the poll might be very close, but I think most people would vote Scarecrow out of wanting to see that movie, of which Matt Reeves is currently meeting with writers and directors to build out and, you know, get ideas on. Now, if I was Matt Reeves, get Mike Flanagan in there. He needs to be on that Clayface project, or any of them, to be honest. He could do an incredible job, But as I'm looking at this paragraph right now, it makes more sense than ever why those Golden Age Clayface pictures were floating around online from scoopers months and months and months back, by the way. But again, it's important to reiterate that all of these projects are in the very early stages of gestation. Matt Reeves is getting the ball rolling. This is all coming after his first look deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, where they've essentially said, and this is me paraphrasing, but they more or less said it, we'll pay for whatever Matt wants to do. So they are invested in this. I'm not saying that these things are all going to happen, because sometimes, as you know, things change along the way. Look at the GCPD series, and you know, who knows if the Arkham series will really happen, but we are getting a bright future for the Batman world, not only in Chapter 2, Chapter 3 with the main stars and cast in sequels, but also spin-off movies and more projects surrounding Batman's Rogues Gallery, with possibly a Scarecrow movie, Professor Pyg, and Clayface, and God knows what else. I think that's where I'm going to leave my fresh ramble reaction, but trust me, this week I will be doing a whole video dedicated to this, and I'll be posting on my community tab wanting your interaction. I'm going to be bouncing off you, any questions, any theories you have. Maybe leave some of them down in the comments below. I'll take a few screenshots there, but look out on my community tab for a separate post, because we're going to dive into this in a whole separate ass video. Alright, so continuing on, it is unclear where the Superman move leaves Abrams, who is still on track to produce Coates' movie centered on the last son of Krypton. That feature would exist outside any larger DC movie continuity, much like Todd Phillips' Joker movies. The mega producer had a few setbacks when some of his DC shows, based in the supernatural corners of DC and featuring characters such as Constantine and Zatanna, were scrapped at Warner Brothers Discovery's HBO Max streaming service. They are now being shopped around to other streamers, but he is not out of the game and is yet another Hollywood power in the mix vying for a piece of the DC pie. And that's true, we've covered that a lot on the channel. J.J. Abrams signed a multi-million-dollar deal way back in, I think, 2019. He was given the rights for Constantine, Zatanna, Justice League Dark characters. It was meant to be starting this whole other splintered kind of universe, like into that of Batman, Joker, their own thing. But yeah, Constantine had a few scripts written by Guy Bolton, and recently, especially after the green light for Keanu Reeves' Constantine 2, they're like, yeah, we're passing on that. And it's now being shopped around, could be picked up. We could get a Constantine series, but we were meant to be getting a Zatanna movie, Madame X. That is now all floating in the wind. But as per this report here, the Superman movie that was going to have a black Superman is still apparently on track to, you know, be produced by J.J. Abrams. Now, I am wondering if that is still going to go forward, because again, this is the thing with the J.J. Abrams deal and what Warner Brothers Discovery in other reports we've covered were getting pretty pissed off with. It's just like, hey, we signed this deal, and all the way to now, what have you got to show for it? Sure, some things were in works, but there wasn't really anything in production when arguably it should have been. At least something should have been. And the same with the Superman movie. It didn't, there's nothing really too much that has happened. I'm sure a lot more behind the scenes than what we know. But now we're getting Henry Cavill back. I am wondering if any of the leaders at Warner Brothers Discovery are going to be like, should we have two Superman movies at the same time? I personally don't see why not. If you can have, you know, a Batman in the DCEU and a Batman in his own universe with Reeves controlling it, Pattinson and whatnot. You have Harley Quinn with Margot Robbie, but you have Harley Quinn now with Lady Gaga and Joker 2 for Lee Adu, not to mention Joker, and then Barry Keoghan's Joker. So I do see the merit in exploring the Superman movie. That Hamada, as it says in this article, had his own Superman plans, one of them involving introducing a black Superman with a multi-decade spanning story by writer Ta-Nehisi Coates. But let me know what you think of that. Do you still want to see that? Do you think that both can exist at the same time, considering we've actually got multiple characters in multiple universes now? Now, skipping past a little bit of the Walter Hamada stuff in this article, because it says he's basically packing his stuff in the office, getting ready to leave. They go on to talk about Michael DeLuca maybe evolving into something a bit more permanent, which would be interesting. I mean, I think they're still going to try and find someone like Dan Lin, of whom they were looking at, but for now it seems that Michael DeLuca is doing a decent job. But let's skip to the next bit. Right now it's the Wild West, says one insider. Everyone is trying to grab as much as they can, and this is exactly what happens in a leadership vacuum. One Warner's insider disputes the idea of a leadership vacuum, saying the studio is not standing still and is moving ahead on several fronts, focusing on some of its A-list characters while planning and developing the wave beyond that. A scriptment for Wonder Woman 3 by Patty Jenkins is expected imminently, and a script for a Flash sequel is already written by Aquaman scribe David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, in case that movie, to be released June 23rd, 2023, does well, which is pretty nuts. I don't know if many of us or any of us had any idea that they had already written a script for the sequel to the Flash movie, which isn't even out yet. But then this brings up the whole thing of, okay, would this still be Ezra Miller? Most people are pretty dead set and decided that Warner Brothers Discovery behind the scenes aren't going to cast Ezra Miller again. Granted, they are going to release the movie, but any Flash sequel would be a recast of Barry Allen, although that technically hasn't been confirmed. The article says that the film stars controversial actor Ezra Miller, who in August met with Warner's leadership after a string of arrests and bad headlines, and today pled not guilty to a felony burglary charge. And this is where currently right now you're probably seeing everywhere on the internet saying Ezra Miller could face up to 26 years if convicted of that felony burglary charge. Yes, they have pled not guilty, but obviously there is no decision right now, but if convicted, could face some, well, quite a bit of jail time. Obviously, I'll keep you updated in a news roundup video. It is kind of confusing, the not guilty plea. I mean, I do get it in one way. Like, Ezra's super rich. They probably have a super crazy good lawyer. But at the same time, if you look up the reports, and this is what we spoke about months ago with that original article breaking the felony burglary news, that the police investigators say they have probable cause as well as hard evidence, including surveillance videos and multiple collected statements. So I don't know, even if how good of a lawyer you are, how you get out of seeing someone on surveillance break into a house. So, do you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see how this one turns out. And lastly, it says, with Superman back on the active block, plus Reeves' The Batman sequel moving forward, it puts the company's big stars in the big screen rotation. DeLuca and Abdi are said to want more things in development and more things on the runway ready to go, an opposite ethos from Hamada, who took a more targeted approach. Which, from what I'm seeing on my social media side of things, a lot of people are somewhat clowning on Hamada right now because of this more targeted approach. People feel like, yes, it may, and I do agree, be way too early to jump on the Warner Brothers Discovery bandwagon of being like, oh yeah, you know, they've saved everything. I think that's way too early to say right now. But already there's a lot more sunshine through the clouds rather than this slow targeted approach, not wanting anything to do with Snyder's vision. Not that I'm saying bring Snyder and everything back or anything like that. I'm just saying, you know, not even bringing Henry Cavill back just because it had something to do with Snyder's vision. The prospect of all of these other projects that are being, you know, spoke about right now and in development even, it just felt like DC was, you know, the train was going backwards before, despite the old regime saying that they would, you know, trying to make things better. But then Warner Brothers Discovery come in with this new regime, even though we need to see what results are yielded from all of this, even though some of it sounds pretty promising. Well, that's exactly it, you know. We've got good news in Henry Cavill. The first look deal with Matt Reeves is already brewing some talk of future projects, future movies with Rogues Gallery villains. Who knows what the heck James Gunn is up to, but it should be pretty decent. A Flash sequel is already written. They're going ham with Wonder Woman 3. Say what you will about that, but at least, you know, they're exploring avenues. We can't forget that they greenlit Constantine 2 with Keanu Reeves, and again, say what you will about that, but I am certainly interested just to see Keanu Reeves in that role sometime in the future. There are a lot of things in the works. Now, I do want to say, I get the apprehension of running before you can walk, because that's what DC did in the Snyder days, the very early Snyder days, jumping straight into Justice League. But here, I don't think it's that. I think it can be misconstrued as that. I think what Warner Brothers Discovery right now can feel like they're trying to just race in there or whatever again, but it's more that they're just trying to get things going. They're lining all these things up. It doesn't mean they're jumping to, get ahead with Marvel already and they're gonna just fall through again. It's just that they're trying to put multiple pans on the hob, cook multiple things at once so they can provide the content and thus the revenue, the success that they want to see, but also through making fans happy. Obviously, they kind of want money more than making fans happy, but to make fans happy, that is how you get the money. So that is what action they're doing. They're ensuring that those sequences are in place, those dominoes are in place to fall in the order. But let me know if you think they're rushing out the gate. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective on that. Or do you agree with me that it's more that they're just editing the sky, moving the clouds out the way, and trying to get the sun to peer through on multiple projects and see where things go? But I'm going to shut up now. I've been rambling for far too long, but I've got more rambling in me for another video or two with regards to going specifically down the theory crafting hill with Superman and the Batman stuff. But let me know your thoughts. I leave the floor open to you. Let me know just everything you have to say. Do consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this and all kinds of news, reviews, breakdowns. Would really appreciate a like if you enjoyed this video. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DC universes out there in the next video. Goodbye.